I'm really, really delighted to introduce a stellar lineup panel today. We're going to be talking about the issue of broadband for effective ship operations and enhanced crew welfare, and looking in particular at the whole aspect of always-on broadband, the way that it can benefit life on board ship and the way that the ships are operated and monitored. We don't have to worry about fire alarms. This is a virtual webinar, but to our delegates coming in, you'll see that there's a chat facility and a Q&A facility at the bottom of the page. You are then able to ask some questions, and I would encourage you to do so. And then I'll do my best to field those questions as we're going along. The webinar today is being video recorded, and it will be edited and then put on and sent out to the readers of Ship Management International, and also available on the website. So your colleagues can view it at their leisure, and you can also do it yourselves at your leisure once it's online. So really, without any further ado, I'm going to get the panelists to introduce themselves, and just to give a bit of a sort of 2-minute précis on their thoughts and feelings as far as broadband for effective ship operations is concerned. I'm going to start with Alexandra. Can I hand over to you just for a couple of minutes? If you could introduce yourself, please, and then a little sort of policy statement on the debated issue there. Over to you.
Thank you. My name is Alexandra Mouligné. I am a program manager at KVH Industries in Middletown, Rhode Island, where our world headquarters is. And I run the Starlink program for KVH. So we are an official reseller of Starlink hardware and data services, the low Earth orbit satellite data service, which has just absolutely exploded like nothing we've ever seen in the industry before. So providing fast, affordable data on board ships has been an absolute game changer in our industry. And I anticipate that to just keep moving in momentum and popularity as far as giving crew lots of different options for connectivity on board.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Alexandra. We'll touch in on that point you made there about the massive explosion in demand there for Starlink services. Let me come on, just really going anti-clockwise here. Samantha, can I introduce you to the audience? And if you could introduce yourself and say a few words about what you think are the important aspects we're going to be debating about.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sean. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. So I'm Sumant Dhananjaya, based out of London. I'm with Intelsat's product management team for maritime. I'm a senior principal product manager here. And coming from a satellite operator perspective and supporting our solution partners, we kind of have three main imperatives basically. So the first one being highly reliable connectivity. The second one being globally available and consistent availability of connectivity, and then third one being high performance. As Alexandra mentioned, there is an explosion of data growth that I concur with. And in order to support that data growth, these are the three main kind of imperatives that we strive to deliver to our solution partners, right? So that's where I'm coming.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Samantha. And coming on to Simon, well, obviously one very important aspect of the debate today is how always-on broadband will enhance crew welfare and crew well-being. Simon, could you introduce yourself and say a few words just about the important aspects that you see?
Yes, certainly, Sean. Thank you. So I'm Simon Grainge. I'm Chief Executive of ISWAN. We're a not-for-profit maritime welfare organisation. We're based primarily in the UK, but we also have teams in India and the Philippines. And so inevitably, I'm going to come at this from a welfare perspective. Connectivity has been a hot topic amongst seafarers for several years. And whilst a lot of progress has been made recently, we're still hearing from seafarers that connectivity is either too little or too expensive. And that's why we see seafarers scrambling for SIM cards as soon as they get into port. But it is getting better. There are those companies who are fully committed to providing connectivity and recognise its value to their crews, and there are those who are still reluctant to provide it. I guess from ISWAN's perspective, we would argue that in a world where everyone lives their lives practically online, connectivity is essential for seafarer well-being.
Yeah, very valid points there, and actually be raising up a number of questions there that I think we'll tackle in a couple of minutes there. Simon, thank you very much indeed. Rick, can I come finally to you, and thank you for being patient there. If you can introduce yourself and also give us a bit of a flavour on what you think are the important aspects, and then we'll get straight into the debate.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Rick Driscoll, Chief Technology Officer at KVH. I've been here about 23 years, I think, about the time that the first kind of stabilized VSAT, the 1 meter VSATs, became available. And that really kind of started the always-on concept, as opposed to a dial-up that used to happen with Inmarsat on its L-band service. So VSAT helped with the speed and the expense and the accessibility of data networking and access to the internet. But it was still kind of expensive relative to what's come out now, which is the LEO services. And it's taking it to a whole new level with increased performance, increased speeds, and then also decreased cost per gigabyte, which really enables more crew access to service, as well as the inter-network ship, which I think is kind of the goal of a lot of this, is to make the ship look more like a remote office than, this remote island that needs to be, serviced kind of in a bespoke way. So I think the LEO, the combination of the LEO and the GEO, are really turning things around for the connected ship.
I'm going to stay with you, Rick, actually going into our first point there and touch on something Alexandra said, and then bring Alexandra in on this. But, we talked about this sort of this explosion in data demand, and also with the services of Starlink there. And you've drawn that sort of element there of the LEO and the GEO element there. But what do you think is sort of driving that demand? Ships are needing to be online. We're wanting to monitor ships all the time. It's all about driving efficiencies. But what are the drivers there, and what are the challenges, would you say, Rick? I'm going to come on to the rest of the team as well after.
Well, I think some of the things that are driving it are compliance with regulations. There's the decarbonization and things like that are requiring different reporting and communication of data back to shore more real time. I think also, as I mentioned, kind of the end goal is to have the ship become a remote office and use what enterprises use for, just day-to-day applications. Like so many things have moved to the cloud. They want the ships to be able to use the cloud resources. And with the advent of LEO, and as I mentioned, the performance of the LEO and the cost of the service, it's making it more of a reality that these ships can actually become a real remote office. And I think that is a lot of what's driving the demand for bandwidth.
Now, Alexandra, let me come on to you here. You mentioned Starlink. What role are they playing in all of this? Are they this disruptor coming in and saying, right, okay, this is how we're going to do it from now on? How does the market view them as well? What are your thoughts?
Well, Starlink is great when it works. And I will say that we are always toting the benefits of a hybrid network, because the reliability of VSAT has been proven worldwide. Very robust, redundant network, versus Starlink is a new network. Some places have congestion issues. So we always tell our customers that it's imperative you have a backup system. So a lot of our customers will have a configuration that automatically switches from Starlink to VSAT or Wi-Fi or 5G LTE, depending on where they cruise. Also, from a least cost routing perspective, not all the ships need satellite internet all the time. A lot of them are in port or close enough to get long range cellular. So that offers tremendous savings to the ship owners.
Right. So, you talk about the backup there, but this whole hybrid element there of always on. I mean, there are so many demands now for connectivity. not only performance optimization rooms but the crew connectivity, you've got training, you've got all of these aspects there. I'm going to come on to Samantha in a minute about what he's talking about reliability, but that, Alexandra, is very, very important, isn't it? That reliable connection is very, very important.
Correct. So I always ask the question, is internet on board a nice to have or a need to have? And I've never had anyone say it's a nice to have. So when they say it's a need to have, it's a requirement. It must work all the time. We talk about options for hybrid connectivity. And this new generation of seafarers are digital natives. So they are used to always being connected. The fleet owners recognize this. They understand the importance of offering always on connectivity, so that way they can entice crew members to join their fleet. They can retain their crew. It helps build morale. It really eliminates a lot of obstacles that some fleets are facing with high crew turnover.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a big issue facing the employers, the owners and the managers. Seafarers are still nomadic, and Simon will no doubt talk about this in a second, where they can pick and choose, and if they can go on a ship that's got good connectivity, then it's going to be of benefit for them. Samantha, let me bring you in a little bit on this. You just in your intro, you talked about the need for reliable connectivity and also being globally available and consistent, but also high performance. Is that really starting to be delivered now into the market? And is this something that the industry is demanding and is sort of putting up with in certain dribs and drabs, but is getting there? I mean, what is the situation at the moment?
I'd like to kind of answer that question by expanding on some of the trends that Rick touched upon, right? I'd like to expand on the geopolitical events, right, that is shaping our world today. And also looking at some of the technological trends, AI, for example, right? And last but not the least, it's the social trends that we are seeing today, as Alexandra mentioned, the digital natives, right? So all these trends are, increasing the demand for data on a day-to-day basis. And that data is, being delivered. The requirement for consistency and reliability is, ever been important, right? Because, if you take any of the trends and if you take any examples or use cases attached to those trends, all those use cases require a reliable global connectivity available to customers or end users, right? And from a network operator standpoint of view, we are, if you take the roadmap, for example, we are driving, the consistent, connectivity by having multi-layered networks, for example, or the performance. If you look at our, the partnership with the LEO offering. So we are bringing in the low latency to our customers. So those are some of the initiatives as a network operator that we are taking in order to bring the three imperatives down to our solution partners and supporting our solution partners to deliver the solutions required as per the market needs.
Looking at the whole issue of geopolitics and AI, just taking a bit more of that debate. I mean, the AI side, that's changing and developing and expanding all the time, and you see that in everything that we do, even at home on our phones. Things will come up and say we've got a new AI plug-in, and we do this, we're doing that. Geopolitics shipping is always proving how agile it is by being able to adapt to changing trade lanes and what have you. What sort of challenges is that throwing up, those two elements throwing up to the industry?
Well, it's the coverage, right? So if you talk about geopolitical events, it's a very, very dynamic landscape today. So, the Red Sea, for example, the coverage on the Red Sea has gone down, but it has increased in other parts where the shipping routes have changed, right? So, and that's a dynamic landscape on a month-to-month basis, or even week-to-week basis in certain cases. So that is having an impact on how we deliver connectivity solutions to our partners, right? So that is from a geopolitical landscape. And if you take AI, for example, from an AI standpoint of view, it relies on that always on connectivity, primarily because it is in some instances talking to the shore devices, or somebody controlling a certain part of the AI which is deployed on the edge, right? So there is that always chit chat between the shore and the onboard equipment on the vessel. And as Rick was saying earlier, the ship is seen as a connected office, if you will, right? And AI solutions deployed on a ship is always relying on that, backbone to talk to the shore to make sure that the communication happens all the time. And as a service operator, we want to ensure that our solution partners are always relying on us to make sure that the connectivity is available to them.
Yeah. Simon, let me bring you in on this, because there are 1.5 million seafarers at sea at any one time, so we're told, and they're relying on it. I think what Alexandra was saying earlier, they're geared up to the digital age already. They're digital natives. They know what they want. They want to have at sea what they have at home. What are you hearing? I mean, when you're talking to seafarers, when you're talking to the vessels and the welfare organisations, before we come on to the very sort of important issue of mental health and crew welfare, what are they telling you? What are the seafarers telling you?
Yeah, sure. Well, they're certainly saying that they expect good connectivity. And when you think that everyone expects that in their daily lives, can we really expect seafarers to make do with less? Particularly younger generations who've never known anything but good connectivity. And if you're used to spending all of your spare time online, then it's going to be incredibly difficult to be in a world where that's not possible. Having said that, of course, seafarers have got a job to do, and the employer is fully within their rights to expect full attention at all times. But let's face it, that's a problem faced by many employers. But we're talking about a recruitment crisis for the industry in the future. So seafarers are going to be able to name their price for their services. And I've no doubt that connectivity will be one of their major considerations when selecting to choose who they work for. So it's going to become more and more difficult for managers to deny it. And connectivity is vital for crew welfare. Shore leave is still a problem for seafarers. And then if they are able to get off, will they actually get access to any welfare facilities? And the organisations that similar to us, but we don't provide ship visiting services, but those that do are reporting increasing difficulty in getting access to ports. So the face-to-face support is not always possible. And that's where ISWAN comes in, because we operate a helpline, but we need connectivity for that. I mean, we've noticed a real change in the way that people contact us for help. These days, only around 10% of contacts are by phone, because WhatsApp, Facebook, and live chat are much more popular. And obviously, they need connectivity for all of that. So the better the connectivity is, the better access they have to our services, for example. We have an app that seafarers can use offline that gives access to all of our written resources. But if they want to come through to our helpline, they need to be connected. And if someone's feeling really low, then having to wait until they're in port is not going to be good enough. We think around 40% of our contacts are from seafarers whilst they're actually at sea. So perhaps this illustrates the point. But remember that the real value of what we do is to provide a friendly point of contact where you can say the things that you wouldn't say to your crewmates, your employers, or maybe family. So privacy and connectivity are essential. And the thing is, seafaring's a tough job. So if we want people to do it, we need to think about making it as manageable as possible. So good food, rest, good pay, entertainment packages, value in their work, and enabling access to the people they love is surely a minimum. And people will always work well if you look after them properly, even if a job is really tough.
I just want to sort of develop this issue of crew welfare, and the question here on the theme here, always on broadband for cost-effective ship operations and enhanced crew welfare. Because what do we mean by crew welfare? Because that could be anything and everything. That can be diagnostics. That could be better training, connectivity with home, entertainment, relaxation. What does it mean to you, son? What does it mean to the seafarers? What are they wanting?
Yeah,
then we'll come on with it, battling the challenges of that. But give me your thoughts.
Yeah, good entertainment packages are important. People spend a lot of time on their own. They spend time in their cabins, which in itself might be an issue, actually, because the thing about connectivity is if it means that everybody just disappears to their cabin, what does that do for social interaction on board? But that's possibly a downside to this. There's quite a lot of interest at the moment in monitoring seafarers and their well-being. So actually, at the moment, we're running a project on social interaction where we're getting people to wear watches, and we're actually noting what's happening with them, how they're feeling, asking them questions to try and keep a constant monitoring of morale, I guess, on board. So that's an important element to this as well, and that needs good connectivity. But also being able to talk to family, that contact with family that, it's not unreasonable to expect. Being away for a long period of time, I've been on board a vessel and I've seen, one of the guys there, same time every day. The most important thing to him was to actually be able to go to his cabin, log on, and actually speak to his children before they went to bed at home. And that for him was a daily routine, and that was really a highlight for him. So I think you can't underestimate the power of that kind of contact. But I think also at the same time we have got to recognise that there are downsides to being able to work like that. I mean, I remember being 6 months in a country where I was a long way from my family, and the frustration of listening to what was going on at home and not being able to do anything about it. And there were times when I thought, actually, I wish I'd never made that call because I feel worse than what I did before.
Yeah.
So I think we also, hand in hand with this, we need to help seafarers to understand, and their families, what is good communication and what is not so good. Some simple tips would be to agree how and when you're going to be in touch, what to say and what not to say, to avoid misunderstandings and be forgiving when they do happen, of course. And not to stay up all night so that you're really tired and you can't actually do your work the next day. But I suppose that's all the sort of things you'd say to a teenager as well, isn't it?
I guess, yeah, I guess you would do. I'm going to bring in Samantha a minute. Please open up for everybody here on the panel. Just butt in. It's not welcome your comments. Simon, before I'm going to ask you one element and then bring Samantha in on it, but fatigue on board ship is a big issue. And seafarers have that 4 or 5 hours downtime, go to their cabin, get some rest. If they're on WhatsApp and on texting and all the rest of it, they're not getting some sleep, then we have this whole recurring issue of fatigue and mistakes are made. 80% of mistakes are human error or whatever. How do we deal with that? And then I want Samantha to maybe give me a view on how AI can maybe enhance that and improve that. But over to you first, Simon, for a quick response to that.
Yeah, I don't think that actually controlling people's access to the internet would be the way forward. I think that's just too paternalistic and is likely to lead to further conflict. But I do think there's an element of education here. As I've said, to recognise that you are primarily responsible for your work, for the safety of yourself and the vessel and everybody else on it. And if you're not performing in that respect, then, that has to be dealt with separately. I don't think that's a reason to take connectivity away from people.
Right. Okay, so Samantha, let me bring you in on this, looking at how maybe AI can help with that. I mean, an example being, Filipino seafarers needing to take diabetes pills or something on board ship. You've got AI that can say, have you taken it? Yes, I have. It's monitoring, it's keeping all of that control. Can AI be used to ensure that the seafarer is getting enough rest on board ship. He's doing what he should be doing as far as looking after his health is concerned, and maybe his diet. Is there any areas that could be assisted on that?
Bear in mind that our solution partner here, KVH, do a lot of the solutions on board the vessel, right? So they have an excellent solution which provide the variety of connections on board the vessel, depending upon the type of application, right? So if it is a low latency, they have solution to switch to a low latency connectivity and so on and so forth. And when it comes to primarily comes to AI type solutions, it all depends on what we are, the type of problems that we are trying to solve, right? And one of the use cases that you said, AI can be deployed in order to control the time that a particular crew is, logged on a certain application. For example, as Simon was alluding to earlier, we want the crew to be entertained and also to be cohesive of, they build a team with on board the vessel, right? You don't want the crew to be locked in a cabin for X amount of time, right? So that is not good for that mental health. So you can build solutions wherein AI is helpful to control that kind of usage at the network level, right? So on board a vessel, you can have certain solution which kind of looks at the usage patterns and decide, how to control the usage. So that is one kind of example that I can pick up on, which will help in order to enhance the crew welfare and to build more of a camaraderie, right, within the crew. So
I want to thank you very much, Jonathan, on that. That's some good aspects there. I want to bring in and look a little bit on the whole issue of the effective vessel operations, and maybe bring Alexandra and Rick in on this. Again, cost-effective ship operations. We're talking about bottom line value. We're talking about enhanced and more efficient operation of the vessel itself in all aspects. But what's the market starting to demand, and how forward-looking is the market to what it wants and what it feels it can get, and what is nice and what is a need to have? Alexandra, do you want to answer that first, and maybe Rick, if you can come in with your thought?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of our most popular service offerings is KVH Link. That is a content delivery method, which gives the fleet owners the choice of over-the-air delivery, secure USB delivery, so they could choose whether it uses a little bit of monthly data or no monthly data at all. So that's a very cost-effective way to bring content on board for the seafarers. So there's everything from education to sports, music. They have a variety of different languages. So all the most common seafarer languages are covered. They can have their local news that they can keep up on, first run movies, their local sports team. I mean, getting everyone in the mess hall crewing for their favorite local sports team is a great way to get everyone together and out of their cabins, as is the karaoke feature has been really popular to get crews engaged and together on board. So that offers a number of different ways to keep the crew happy, build morale, and offers a number of different delivery methods to fit all different budgets.
And also just chime in on that. I'm sorry, Sean, but just when we sold this link service that Alex alludes to, it's the delivery mechanism, but also, as she mentions, the content. And we have options for playing it back on your mobile device or on a set-top box. And in almost all cases, the set-top box is the most popular playback method because it sits in a common area where the crew can get together, watch the same content, and bond, versus going back into their cabins and streaming it individually. So it's a pretty compelling service that we deliver now.
Yeah, and I think the point that you're both making there, Alexandra made it very clearly there, about getting into the sort of open spaces and with your buddies there on board ship and sharing sort of social downtime moments as well, I think is really, really important. I mean, even talking to a seafarer or an ex-captain in Posidonia, and he said, we should really bring back the bar on board ship. We're not allowed to, but that sort of thing was that sort of focal point on board the ship, which I think is important. We've had a couple of questions come in. One from a delegate from Taiwan. Thank you very much. He says actually satellite service is not worldwide. For example, in Taiwan, only in Inmarsat, but that's too slow, too expensive, and Starlink reject or decline to open service to Taiwan. But experts need to know when we talk about working rights and human rights, communication rights, we have 1,000 distance water fishing vessels sailing and fishing up around the world. Until now, we have no other solutions to level up our satellite Wi-Fi for fishers at the high seas. I don't know if anybody wants to have a comment on the fishing industry and that sector. I mean, it's equally as important. Samantha, do you have anything you want to talk about global coverage?
Yeah, and we constantly have regulatory challenges, right, in terms of global coverage. From a geo offering standpoint of view, we do have coverage across 95% of the globe, where we provide consistent connectivity. And I think Taiwan is also covered there. So I think the challenges that the person is referring to is in terms of the LEO coverage. It is catching up, no doubt. Nonetheless, the regulatory aspect is always something which is hotly debated. As a service provider, we thrive to have consistent coverage is what we try to do.
Okay, lovely. But I want to ask sort of one point, looking at the comms options available really moving forward, but looking at the sort of future proofing moving forward, because I mean, we're advancing at such a speed. Our demands are going up, and the availability of the service and the options available are just getting better and better. Who wants to sort of come in on this just to give us an idea of what options are available now and how they can be developed moving forward? Alexandra, do you want to have a go at that? And
sure, Sean, I just wanted to chime in on that last question from the audience. One of the solutions that's been very popular for the fisheries has been the KVH Agile plans. In general, their budgets are smaller and tighter, and the Agile plans offers VSAT connectivity on board with no CapEx. So there's no upfront hardware costs. They have subsidized shipping and installation. They get the hardware and the monthly data at a fixed monthly cost. There's unlimited plan options, high-speed plan options. So that's something that's really been very popular for the fisheries and different commercial fleets to deploy. We have partners in ports worldwide helping with installs. There's global support. They don't have to worry about any maintenance or warranty for the life of the product. There's upgrade paths available, which helps with the future-proof question. From a Starlink front, they are already amidst the launch of their second-generation satellites. So they are moving at a rapid pace to add to their network. Their flat HP antenna has been the most widely used on board ships. It is the only antenna that they have licensed and authorized globally for use in motion on ships. I know that some ships will use the standard antennas when they're in port. The Mini is coming out this month. That is something that people might use in port. So a lot is going to be changing. I think there's rapid changes on the Starlink front, and some ships will have one to several of each. One for offshore, one for inshore, dual systems for blockage, redundancy. They can bond them together for double the speeds.
Right. Okay. Rick, do you want to have any comments on that? I mean, as far as looking at options are concerned, what have you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've touched on a few of them. There's obviously the legacy L-band that's been out there forever, the cellular services, the geo services, and then the non-geo services, which encompasses MEO and LEO. I think the LEO services are going to hold up as long as their business models do. I think if they can make money at it, which has always been the thing that has kind of held them back, then they've got a bright future because it's a compelling low latency, high speed service. But I think Sumant can also talk about what Intelsat's doing with their software-defined satellites, which has an intelligent geo sat that can basically concentrate power, follow vessels, and produce incredibly high speeds to given vessels as they traverse. So I think it's going to be an evolving landscape. I don't know about future proofing in some of these cases because the technology does change pretty frequently, but the upgrade should be manageable, I think, by the fleets.
Samantha, do you want to add anything to what Rick was saying there?
Absolutely. So how I would like to paint the picture here is from a three-year horizon perspective, right? So if you look at the near term, we are bringing high-speed geo network, which is going to launch in the next couple of months. And we already have the partnership with a LEO operator, OneWeb, right, bringing in that kind of the low latency connectivity to the market. And in the midterm, we are certainly looking at the software-defined satellites, which will augment the existing connectivity, right, to bring in all the advantages that the software-defined satellite, from dynamic payloads and following the vessel and what have you, right? So, and also it will augment the existing highly reliable connectivity with high performance, right? So that is something that is happening in the midterm. And, mid to long term, you're actually looking at standardization. By the way of, in the network segment itself, the 5G network standards, are coming in. And also we are looking at standardization of the onboard equipment to drive efficiencies to the end users, right? So these are some of the things that, from an Intelsat perspective, we are heavily involved and also looking at, the future in order to support some of the demands that Simon and Rick and Alexandra mentioned in terms of supporting their customers, right? So that's what Intelsat is doing and laying the framework for the future.
I want to, before I come on to the point about how we sort of control usage, and there's a question also been sent in by one of the delegates on that. Simon, can I just get your point on, or your view on this sort of the fishers side? I mean, are you getting it? Do you deal with the fishers side, with the fishery industry? Do you get any views from them and what their thoughts?
No, we don't. We work primarily with seafarers, and we regard fishers as separately. We do from time to time get helpline calls from those who are on fishing boats, but that's a very small group of people for us.
Okay, no problem. Right, just going on to, we've got a question here from Takis Markatos. People have more than one electronic device, sometimes three or more, all of which are usually auto-connected to local internet signals and probably set up for auto-updating, etc. How can we control the usage on board ship so the bandwidth is available for business and also for those who are actively online? I mean, this is a key issue here. Because you need to make sure that the vessel is operating to capacity, and also in the most efficient way. But Rick, can I come over to you? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, controlling this.
That's kind of a fine line, because you do want certain updates to occur for cybersecurity purposes, which is what a lot of the updates are basically security fixes to the operating systems and the applications that run on those devices. But they also do consume quite a bit of bandwidth, and it's kind of randomized when it does consume that bandwidth. There's ways to control that. For instance, we have a device called CommBox Edge where you can set up certain application filters to either limit the bandwidth those updates consume or block them altogether or what have you. You can do different, levels of control on those things. And I think that's what most people do, try and control that kind of runaway bandwidth in the background that nobody really sees.
Yeah. Samantha, do you have anything to add on that? I mean, because usage, I'm going to come on the social side in a second with Simon, but I mean, how you ensure that the vessel is utilizing that always on capability to the best element there. How much of a problem is it?
Yeah, I think so. From a capacity distribution point of view, we invest heavily in making sure that there is consistent capacity available across the globe, right? So that is, at the network level, we want to ensure that our solution partners have the relevant controls in place so that they can, when required, manage that switch, right? And as required, that they can control the usage on not just one vessel, but across a number of vessels, right? So, in the network terms, we call that as a pipe. So you control the pipe on how to open that pipe and close the pipe. So, from an operator standpoint of view, we want to make sure that all the tools and capabilities is available to our partners so that they can manage it efficiently as they see fit. So that's where we come in to support our partners.
But is it going to get more tricky moving forward as more applications and more technologies coming on board and is available to ship owners, to the crew on board the ship, and also to the office? I mean, every ship management office I seem to go into has got a performance optimization room there where they're in touch with their ships, and that's data flying backwards and forwards all the time, and that must be putting pressure and increased pressure. How can that be dealt with? Is that seen as a challenge or an opportunity?
I mean, as Rick mentioned, KVH has an excellent solution there in terms of the comm box, which does that very efficiently, right? In managing the different networks and the different application protocols that it allows and disallows on a need basis, right? So when you take that another level higher, from our perspective, we are providing the pipe, right? And we're managing the contention on that pipe. So how many boats or how many customers are on a certain pipe and in a given location and so on. So for us, in order to deliver that consistent performance, we've got to manage the subscription ratio or the contention ratio across a number of vessels operating in a certain region. And the more tools we provide to our customers, the better it is. So going forward, you will be seeing a lot of AI kind of technologies being deployed, which can basically dynamically change the way that capacity is being controlled, right? And software-defined satellites is one such element which will help us to do, better provide efficiencies on the network.
Mm. But we still got a problem with not all ships being technically set up, but digitally set up. I mean, still, aren't embracing the benefits there. I mean, maybe bringing Alexandra into this. When you're looking at different owner groups or different parts of the world as well, I mean, are you seeing, an acceleration of sort of companies embracing it and first movers, and still having elements that are laggards and holding back? I mean, the Greek market has traditionally been known as one that's sort of not as fast as others in actually embracing digitalization. What are your thoughts on that?
Education has certainly been key to this effort. We have a number of great YouTube video tutorials. So, for example, our KVH VSAT subscribers have built-in self-serve tools. So some of the features where they can allow, restrict, or block data usage in up to 11 different categories. So that is very simple. Anyone who's authorized with access can make those changes where they can restrict background storage, bulk transfer, things like those updates, just restrict them to a trickle, to a slower speed. So they still happen, but they're not going over the high speed. Or, for example, they could block gaming that consumes a ton of bandwidth. They could allow any email applications or web browsing. So that is one option. If you want to dive deeper, for example, Starlink has obviously given people unprecedented speeds on boards, but we liken it to a race car without brakes, because these people are very surprised at how quickly they can consume their monthly allowance between a smart TV doing updates in the background, or software updates. So especially streaming content has been a big culprit in using up data. So the CommBox Edge takes it many levels deeper, where you can control by user, by application. There's real-time usage and reporting. So you can give your crew a captive portal so that everyone gets their own login, and perhaps depending on rank, they're allotted a certain monthly allowance. There's application level controls, a lot of dynamic tools there that can easily be cloned to repeat across the entire fleet. So the ship manager gets a cloud-based portal where they have a single pane of glass. They can see what's going on with the entire fleet, and it will dynamically react in real time. So you can say, only run these updates when we're connected to shore Wi-Fi, or only allow streaming on Starlink. So you can set up those type of rules.
Oh, no, that's very interesting. Simon, let me bring you in on this and this whole issue of usage as well, and certainly from a seafarer perspective. How should it be controlled from their aspect there? Because they do have a lot of demands. They do want to be, as Alexandra was saying, maybe do some gaming. They might want to stream movies. They do need to get their rest. They do need to do other aspects. How much of a worry is it from the social side?
Yeah, I guess from a seafarer's perspective, they just want to be able to be on when they want it and to be able to do whatever they want. That's a basic human response, isn't it? But the reality is that's not going to be possible. I think if it can be shown that the managers of the vessel are doing their best to provide what is a good quality service to seafarers, there's another complication here, is the fact that their time off could be at all times of day, and also they may well be in a different time zone to their family. So, that's another sort of complication in terms of working out how best to distribute the amount of connectivity that's available for seafarers. I'm sure that the majority of people would understand that there need to be limitations. And I guess if you can bring people together, for streaming and things like that, perhaps if it's in one place where it brings people together to watch a film, for example, that is a very positive thing. The study that we did on social interaction on board shows us there's a really positive correlation between having some kind of social events and actually the overall morale of people. You have to make these events happen. There has to be somebody who permits it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a barbecue or a game of basketball. It can be something that's online, or people within the same vessel, perhaps vessel to vessel competitions, that kind of thing. That's a really useful, I think, if you can at the same time bring people together using the technology rather than them dispersing into their cabins all the time, and that would be a quite neat trick.
How do you get that to work, though? Is it more to do with, changing the mindset with the seafarers rather than the actual owning or management companies?
I think there's a bit of both. I mean, certainly seafarers need to understand what the restrictions are. I mean, they always tend to come up from the point of view of, well, we're not getting it because nobody will pay for it. And so it's therefore, that's the response. But I think there needs to be a consistent dialogue between those managing the vessels and the seafarers, that actually this is what we're trying to do for you. This is what's reasonable. And this is what is not reasonable.
And were any lessons learned from the COVID situation, when obviously seafarers are at sea for so long, and this is all against the backdrop of a recruitment crisis, as you've talked about already?
Yeah, I mean, COVID proved beyond doubt that seafarers The amount of hours that they were expected to work, the length of time that they were on board had a very serious impact, a serious negative impact on them wanting to actually stay as seafarers, to stay within the industry. And there's been numerous studies that have actually demonstrated that it had a very serious impact on that. It will continue to do so in terms of recruitment. If we look at the modern generations, what we're going to be expecting from them and what they're used to on land, that's going to be a real challenge. It's going to be difficult to entice people, I think, the type of people that you're going to need in the future into the industry. You're going to need people who are very technologically savvy. But actually, do they really want to go to sea when they can probably get equivalent jobs on land that will be equally rewarding, and they've got the freedom of being able to see people in their own spare time and be close to their family? So I think there are some big issues in the future in terms of that.
Okay. Coming on to really, we've got 6 or 7 minutes left. I just really want to look at how looking forward now with the opportunities that are there, and how the industry can take advantage of the opportunities when it comes to broadband connectivity. We've got it there, it's happening. We've heard a lot today about the options available, but maybe sort of going around and getting the views of the panelists here. Rick, can I start with you? Looking ahead now, 2, 3, 5 years time, how the industry can really now start to position itself to actually really take advantage of this in all areas. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think just as we've touched on already, it used to be the barrier to getting in the game was CapEx and spending a lot of money and getting the ship owners to commit to putting these systems on. And now the CapEx is down in the $2,000 range, which is like an order of magnitude difference than what it used to take. So I think any and all of these shipping companies will be getting into the at least the LEO game, and then with some of the changes in the GEO VSAT market, those will become more accessible over time as well. And I just think it's going to make it a lot easier for these guys to take advantage of broadband, the services, the normal enterprise applications, cloud-based applications that everybody else uses. So.
But are there going to be certain? Do you see certain demand traits starting to come through? With maybe autonomous vessels starting to come more onto the scene, or greater use of that sort of stuff.
There's a lot of automation like that, and even just remote support and things like that are becoming standard right now. And with the low latency connections of the LEO satellites, the autonomous stuff becomes autonomous in the sense that it'll drive itself, but you can also control it more real time from the shore globally. It's an incredible thing.
Samantha, let me get your sort of thoughts on that. Looking ahead, and how in the perfect world, how the industry can really take advantage of what it's going to be looking at as far as opportunities are concerned.
Yeah, I mean, there will be a menu of options from an end user or ship operator perspective, right? Depending upon the application that they want to use, there will be low latency solutions available, or high speed, high throughput solutions available to the market, which they can deploy based on their particular application or need, right? And we kind of identified a lot of areas where there is a lot more to do in terms of be it crew welfare or ship operations, right? And standardization will help to a greater extent, because as you see the vessel infrastructure being standardized, there will be a lot of efficiencies being driven from that. And as Rick pointed out, the CapEx is a big portion of that. And as you see standardization, that will also drive down the CapEx outlay required for a particular vessel. So there was I see a lot of good things coming our way in the next 3 to 5 years, especially in the SATCOMs industry and the VSAT industry.
I mean, there's a big debate at the moment about the need for platforms bringing all digital elements together. Where you've got that standardization, they're talking to each other, and you can really see the benefit, and that needs connectivity. You
Correct.
need to have that, and not only with what's happening as far as the seafarers are concerned, the vessel operations, but also the aligned industries like class, like insurance, like everything else. The ports, the way the ship talks to the port, that needs connectivity. So there's going to be more of a reliance on that. Simon, let me get your views from the social, and then I'm going to have a chat with Alexandra just really on the market side on that. But looking at from the seafarer perspective, we've got a big issue in attracting the young talent into shipping. It's a tremendous industry, we know that, but they've got a lot of options ashore. How can the industry take advantage of what's happening as far as digitalization, connectivity, and innovation is concerned, and attract those seafarers in?
I think just the fact that the industry becomes so technical will be an attraction to some people. Particularly younger people, they will see it as something perhaps quite enticing, but they need to be reassured that actually their expectations will be met as much as possible, that they will be able to contact family, that they will get access to support and services when they need it, even whilst on the vessel, that there are ways to actually monitor people's performance and how they're feeling, and maybe even, I know that there are some methods at the moment whereby you can actually detect whether somebody may be suicidal or not. That's quite a step forward. I think amongst all that, we've also got to remember that they are human beings, and that they don't become too much part of the machine. I think don't forget the human element, and it is about what we as humans do together and the way that we treat each other that's also equally important.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting, isn't it, now how we start talking about humans versus machines. I was looking at the internet the other day and somebody came up, can you click here to prove that you're a human? It's amazing how it's sort of accelerating ahead. Alexandra, let me bring you in, just really, obviously looking at the opportunities, but from a market perspective, from when you're dealing with the owners and the managers and the options available there, we've seen an explosion in things like Starlink. What are they looking forward to, do you think, really looking forward as far as having all that connectivity on the broadband side is concerned? What's the market really getting excited about?
I think the key word is opportunities, is really a explosion of changes that have happened at a rapid pace. LEO, GEO, MEO, there's just so much changing right now for connectivity on board. And it's very hard to keep pace with all these changes. So I think that the market is really relying heavily on their connectivity providers, working with a solution provider who is an expert in the marine industry, who understands the unique needs of those customers and can really work on a custom solution to meet those needs. And that just circles back to our point about the hybrid network. Someone who has a network agnostic management tool. So it doesn't matter if they have just VSAT or just Starlink or a combination of different solutions, that network management tool can be applied across the board to all the different solutions they have to help meet their needs.
And to be honest with you, Alexandra, we expect it with our phones, don't we? We're walking down the street, whether it's Wi-Fi or 4G or 5G, we don't care as long as we can make that call or get that data.
And with all these changes, obviously there are regulatory challenges. They're awaiting Starlink approvals in a number of countries, awaiting licenses, and that changes very rapidly. So making sure that the ships are complying with the regulatory rules, that falls heavily on the solution provider to be educated and to be that resource, that expert for them, that keeps them abreast of all these changes, because it is a full-time job staying on top of all the changes.
Samantha, we did have just one cool final question coming in here from an anonymous attendee, asking if you could provide more details on what you mean by standardization. Do you want to just to give a little bit of a brief explanation of that? Yeah.
So I believe this is referring back to the CommBox Edge discussion, which is our network management tool that allows the fleet to create a configuration that works for their entire fleet, and it can be cloned, it can be modified, it can be repeated. So that really standardizes and makes an easy implementation of whether it's different thresholds by network or by user, different application controls, so that they can discuss with their solutions provider what they're looking for and implement it incredibly easy because of this standardization.
Brilliant. Anybody else got anything to add on that? Samantha, anything?
Yeah, no, from a network operator standpoint of view, Sean, you alluded to that, if you look at 10 years ago, our phones worked on one set of spectrums, right? Our handheld phones worked on one set of frequencies and so on. And then over the years, there is tri-band and what have you, right? So now you can take a phone and walk into any country, and it latches onto the network available there. And that is the kind of standardization that we're talking about in the satellite industry as well. Primarily kind of driven from the mobile terrestrial networks. 5G is something that is bringing the standardization, which will ensure that from a user equipment perspective, it can work across multi-orbits, like GEO, MEO, or LEO, right? Which simplifies the equipment on board a vessel, right? So that is one use case that I can immediately pick up on.
Brilliant. Well, it's quite amazing actually. We've sort of been bang on an hour and 2 minutes, which I think is excellent there. Really, I mean, just to the panel, are there any other points that you want to make? This is a very, very important, emotive discussion here. A lot of aspects that we've covered. Is there anything that you want to add, or I think we've sort of seemed to have sort of covered quite a lot on that? You're happy? And well, I just really want to say thank you very much indeed for your input and your time today. It's been, as I said, we covered a lot. We had good interaction also from the audience as well. So thank you very much indeed. Just to reiterate, the meeting today has been video recorded, and then it will be available on the Ship Management International website, and will be sent out to the readers as well. But again, to the panelists, thank you very much indeed for your time today. I do appreciate it. And yeah, look forward to seeing you again on our next SMI webinar. But thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay.